The board meeting of the Park District of Highland Park is hereby called to order at 6:10 p.m. on Tuesday, October 27th, 2015, here at the Westridge Center. Kathy, could we please call the roll?
Commissioner Bernstein?
Here.
Commissioner Flores-Weiskopf? Here. Commissioner Kaplan?
Here.
Vice President Ruttenberg?
Here.
President Myers?
And I am here as well. I've been told I say that every time. I did not know that. Welcome all. Good to see everyone again. Welcome everyone in the crowd. Thank you, Dan. I usually try and get rid of mice in the building, but every once in a while. I'm going to take this slightly out of order, but first let me ask the board if there are any requests for additions to the agenda this evening. Okay. I'm going to jump down to item 8, which is new business, because I think it's always nice to start our meetings on a happy and high note. This has to do with Resolution 1501, recognition of Robert Karger. If that name sounds familiar, at least the last name, it should. We'll talk more about that in a second. Liza, you want to set that up for us?
Sure. For those of you that certainly everyone recalls that on September 9th, we had a fire that occurred at Rosewood Beach that had begun burning earlier in the evening, and fortunately, one of our local residents, Mr. Bob Karger, was out jogging that morning, and so he came upon the fire and he took immediate action, which helped probably save us further damage at Rosewood. And so we are here tonight to recognize Bob for his act in helping to save Rosewood, and along with Bob tonight is his sister as well. So
welcome. Particularly fitting, good to see you. Particularly fitting that we're here today to recognize Mr. Karger for his quick actions to protect one of our most prized assets, our crown jewel beach. As I mentioned earlier, the name may sound familiar. The Karger family has a long and distinguished history here in Highland Park, and they've been known for their commitment to the Highland Park community and to the Park District of Highland Park. Mr. Karger's father spent 12 years right here as a park board commissioner and was an advocate for public access to our beautiful lakefront and beaches. And in fact, the Karger Center is named after him. So in keeping with the family tradition, we have another superlative act of community service that I would like to recognize. And the proposed resolution that I'm going to ask for approval reads as follows. This is Resolution 15-01, recognizing Robert Karger. Whereas the Park District of Highland Park holds as its mission enriching community life through healthy leisure pursuits and an appreciation of the natural world. And whereas the Park District offers healthy leisure pursuits at Rosewood Beach. And whereas on Thursday, September 17th at 4:20 a.m., Robert Karger, a Highland Park resident, was jogging through Rosewood Beach, witnessed a fire on the beach boardwalk. And whereas Robert Karger demonstrated quick response and ran to the nearby Highland Park Fire Station 32 to report the fire. And whereas fire station crews were able to extinguish the fire within minutes before further damage was sustained to the structure. And whereas the Park District was able to cordon off the area early that morning so other beachgoers would not get hurt. And whereas now, therefore, be it resolved that the Park District of Highland Park recognizes and honors Robert Karger for an extraordinary display of courage, confidence, compassion, and an inspirational display of character that ultimately contained the fire, avoiding further damage to the structure and danger to other beachgoers. Dated today's date, here at the Park District, Westridge Center. So,
I move adoption of Resolution 1501, recognition of Robert Karger.
I'll second.
we have a motion and a second. Any debate or comments from the other commissioners before we vote?
Just thank you. Thank you. Could have been really bad. Well, it pretty much wasn't ideal, but yeah, thank you.
All right. I'll still call the vote, but I think I know how it's going to come out. Why don't we call the roll?
Commissioner Bernstein?
Aye.
Commissioner Flores-Weiskopf?
Aye.
Commissioner Kaplan?
Aye.
Vice President Ruttenberg?
Aye.
President Myers?
Very enthusiastically, aye. The motion is passed unanimously. The resolution is adopted. Congratulations.
That's why he's in shape and I'm not.
Get the window shut.
Thank you.
The window's just opened.
Shut it again.
proof that jogging is good for everyone.
Thanks.
Smile.
I'd like to know your time from
better run.
from the beach to the fire department. That had to be an all right sprint. Do you want to just say anything? Do you want to tell us anything about what happened or what made you?
Well, sometimes I'm wimpy because I don't run if it's like this out there, but it was a nice morning, so I was going along the trail, and I get down to the boardwalk, and like I was saying earlier, the first thing I saw was a skunk, so luckily that ran away. But as I was going along, I saw smoke, and then got up there, and the fire was going across. So normally, a lot of times I'll see the policeman opening the gate at the top. So first I ran up the steps, and of course he wasn't there that day. He had already opened it. So then I just proceeded on to the Ravinia Fire Station. And they probably weren't excited to get the doorbell rung that early. They were good, and took care of it right away.
Excellent. Well, that is an occupational hazard for them, so
Yeah.
that's great. Well, thank you again. It is wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Our new beach. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye, thanks.
Thank you.
All right. I think rather than proceeding with the variety of other new business, we will go back in order of the agenda. So the next item would be public comment for items that are currently on the agenda. If anybody's here from the public that would like to address any of the agenda items that we have listed, feel free to speak now. If there's something you'd like to discuss with us that is not on the agenda, we'll have that opportunity a little bit later on. Okay, no takers for the moment. We will deal with off-agenda items in a bit.
No, I think it is. If the 112 is part of the agenda, going over your conversations, I can't see. Minutes of the joint special meeting. If that is an agenda item and we have something to comment on regarding a proposed use of West Ridge Park, is that an agenda item?
Well, let's see. We're
It's on your
It's the
consent
minutes.
agenda.
yeah. I'm happy to let you discuss it with us now. That's fine.
I haven't been here before. Do I stay here?
Why don't you step up and tell us your name, address, and use the microphone
Thank
up
you.
there. Thank you. Welcome.
Okay, so thank you for the opportunity.
Pleasure.
I want to say I think Rosewood Beach is just fabulous, the job that was done there. I just can't say I drag everybody who comes up to Highland Park to see it.
Thank you.
And they are wowed, and they love it.
Thank you.
With that compliment, can we have your name?
Okay, my name is Helen Weiss Singer, and I'm a newcomer. I'm a 30-year resident of Highland Park.
Your address also, please. Your address?
Pardon me? Oh, 1847 Edgewood Road. I'm very proximate to
Okay.
the park,
Hmm?
Westridge. So, by way of background, I am a principal of Weiss Development Corporation. It is a development firm that is actually the oldest firm that building new construction condominiums in the state of Illinois. And I mentioned that we're not the largest player in the field, but we have constructively and successfully worked with villages and cities in the north suburbs for 70 years, including most recently Lincolnshire, in front of planning committees and ARB committees, and of course the board, in the past Lake Forest, Morton Grove, Skokie, Lincolnwood, Buffalo Grove. Just generally, I mentioned that because I want to say that I feel I can understand a site plan reasonably well when I see one. I want to know if the board is aware that presently the Park District Board's president's Facebook post regarding a petition to save Westridge Park is now posted on school board Facebook pages, school board members' Facebook pages, effectively being used as an endorsement for sure it's the intention to be seen as an endorsement of their plan for a middle school. Along with it is the newest site plan proposing their use of Westridge Park, how they would use it. I'm sure it'll be further tweaked. And, but this plan, which is going to be 2 roads, but 1 or 2 roads, then further berms, and they say in my business, watch out for the berm. When you see the berm, you're not in good shape, you know? It's not what you want to see on a site plan, big earth berms. It's so flawed, that plan, and I know it's not your brief, the school's plan to site a middle school there, but it is an effectively, the use of Westridge, how they're using it, is just like, almost like prima facie evidence that it is a messed up plan to get to that location. And, you know, when you have to see wall-sized berms, it's a shout-out, you know? It's something you have to look at further. My first question is, does the school, I don't know if you answer questions in public.
Typically not.
Okay,
This
that's
is really
fine.
more to hear what
My
you have to
first
say.
question is, if I get an answer in some format, I really would love to know, does the school boards, how they're going to use Westridge, how their site plan comes out, does that have any effect on your decision? Will it impact your decision to make a trade, exchange, sale? I still don't really know what the transaction would be. My second question is, in this contemplated transaction, where this posting says Westridge Park is not in any jeopardy, if this transaction occurs, does this park district have any future control of the use of Westridge? Do they maintain, retain any control of what can happen after the transaction is completed, including the playground or the green space or whatever it is? Because if it's not yours completely, I don't know. I'd like to understand that. Or times of use, it'll be allowed. In other words, if they're doing 2 runs of buses, is it out of use from 8 to 10? Is it out of use from 3 to 4? Is it out of use from 5 to 6? After a game plan, do we need to have a schedule? Does this Westridge not in jeopardy? Do we have a really good understanding of how it's not in jeopardy? And how much of that green space is guaranteed to remain green space when X doesn't work? Because I don't think it'll work. And further changes will be needed, and it's continually either taken away from community use or slowly divested of green space because of future needs of the school board that have nothing to do with community use of the space. My family has resided in Highland Park, me only 30 years, but 3 generations. My daughter is proximate. It's not about just one daughter either. My daughter is proximate. I've heard comments, well, those who don't like it will move and other people will come. I've actually heard that spoken. That doesn't sound right to me. I wonder if it sounds right to you. We've been here 3 generations, and I have to say, I came from the city. I'm born and raised in the city, and I just thought, and I never saw Highland Park growing up. I'm just a real city kid, and I have never changed my mind. I think Highland Park is absolutely the jewel of the north suburbs. I think it's awesome. I think the people who live here are awesome. I think the people who serve on these boards are unbelievably committed, good citizens, and we're so blessed. But Westridge is an integral part. It's not just nostalgia. It looks like it's nostalgia, but it isn't. I mean, I live it. I'm there. And we meet new people all the time who discover it. It's huge. It's just amazingly unique. It is valued by not just the adjacent neighborhood, it's valued by, because my kids went through Sherwood and all the way from, sorry about my finger, all the way from Sherwood Forest, kids were, as they were in 4th and 5th and 6th grade, they were always riding there in the afternoons or throwing a ball there. I don't think it's that different now. It's valued by so many residents and probably people who live elsewhere, I'm sure. You know, I think it'll be a travesty for it to be gone because it is irreplaceable. If it could be replaced, you could say, you know, let's do this now. But it can never be replaced. And one of the last things I want to say, and I could have missed something, I took, before this meeting, way back when I saw this was being contemplated, I looked down the Park District and I really wasn't familiar before with the Green Prints. Green Prints 2024.
Green print, right.
Just one green print.
No, I looked a month ago. So if something's changed, I don't know.
I
When I
was
first
referencing that
became
it was-
aware of this.
I was referencing, I'm sorry, that it's been years in the making. There's no way we could have done more than one, but.
Oh,
anyway.
yes. And I think it was like a 2-year process, right? Something
Yeah,
like that, and
it
you had a
was.
lot of, I saw nothing about Westridge on there. I saw the hockey and the this and that. This big document of your mission. Westridge, have I missed it? I didn't see anything about divesting yourself of Westridge in there. I know the school board knew you were amenable to it for some reasons. They did know there was some opportunity. So there's something in your mind that maybe I don't know, or objectives you have that I only hear bits and pieces of that I can't know for sure are true. But I can say that document, which is what the community involved themselves, was asked to participate in, was shown your mission, and was titled to ensure resources are aligned with current and future needs and community values. Said nothing that I could see about getting rid of Westridge. You could correct me if I'm mistaken. So where did this come from? You know? So given all that I've said, I would implore this board to please get greater feedback. Greater feedback to know how thousands of residents probably feel about this proposal. And, you know, it is definitely objectively a jewel in the crown of Highland Park. And they can come up with another plan. For sure they can. For sure they can. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Just a couple of quick observations, then we'll, anybody else want to address an off-agenda topic? So,
On agenda or off agenda?
sorry, on agenda, thank you. We'll come back.
I mean, it's regarding the park, so where do you want me to?
Yeah, I mean, as long as we're on topic, go ahead.
You know,
And then-
actually, though, before we have you come up, I do think it would be appropriate, President Myers, for you to address something that the residents said of your Facebook page, because I am aware of how that transpired and what it said, but I think it's important, especially since this video recorded, that you kind of explain what it is, because it kind of sounds like you were endorsing a plan, and that wasn't in case.
How it was being used.
How it's being used. Okay, well, I think it's.
Specifically said how it was being used.
Okay, well, great, because I think it's important for people to know who think that that it's a statement that, like I said, if it's being used, that it's clear as to what it truly is, coming from the horse. This is how it.
Called me a horse, thank you. So let me make a few general comments, and I certainly appreciate that this topic of Westridge and the school relocation is of very significant interest to the community and is worth a brief departure from our agenda. And let me start by making a more general observation, which is the reason we don't typically answer questions and have a Q&A. One, there's the usual logistical issues. You can imagine trying to get through a meeting, having that. But the other reality is that answer a question typically requires us to take action to make a decision. I cannot answer a question on behalf of the board. I don't have the power to do that unilaterally. It would require us to meet, confer, deliberate, and then come to a consensus and answer the question. So typically what we do is listen, then we have conversations, not off camera, we have conversations when we have items on our agenda, and then come back and address the issues. But the good news from the issues that you've raised, and I suspect that you're going to talk to us about in a second, we have already addressed publicly. And so what I would like to do is just summarize some of the comments that have already been made by the board collectively or in the public domain now, so I don't have to make an independent decision or try and come up with a response to something that would require 5 of us to agree on something. And so what I would suggest, recommend to you, we record our meetings, and there was a meeting that we had on this topic, and I think the first 5 or 10 minutes of the meeting we're addressing a lot of the points that you just raised, so I would suggest it's on our website, so I would encourage you to go back and look at it.
Your past meeting, your last meeting?
I think it was the last full board meeting, not the last workshop meeting. But
September 29th.
September 29th.
September 29th. So I think you would find that informative, but let me just briefly summarize the comments that we made, which is that let me talk about the Park District, then I'll talk about the Facebook situation. So the Park District has not taken a public position on the quality or integrity, viability or efficacy of the school board's plan to do a middle school campus configuration for a variety of reasons. Our issue has been and continues to be what to do with respect to the land that they have asked us to provide for them for that mission. So we have been evaluating how that request fits into the needs, wants, concerns, agenda, mission statement of the Park District. Right now, we do not have any commitment to do anything with the school district, to give them Westridge, not give them Westridge. It is subject to an ongoing conversation, dialogue, negotiation. And it is tabula rasa. It is blank slate, meaning that we have an opportunity to try and negotiate whatever conditions we think are appropriate, which could include conditions on usage, conditions on transfer, conditions on access. We certainly heard loud and clear the community's concern over not just maintaining this space as a public park, but also maintaining public access to it. So it's not just keeping it green, it's providing access to the community. We heard that, we understand the issue. So there are a variety of things that we can do as we have these ongoing discussions with the school board. Now, whether they'll be amenable to them, I don't know. We have a working group or a task force that's been handling negotiations. That's Commissioner Bernstein and Commissioner Ruttenberg. And we will see what can be done. And if an agreement can be reached that addresses our concerns, then we will move forward. And if not, then we won't. In terms of the Facebook posting, that really, unfortunately, grew to be much ado about what I thought was relatively nothing. There was a petition that was posted on Facebook that wound up getting shared from my account. I don't know how that happened. I did not share it. But my concern was that in sharing that petition, that might have reflected that I was advocating the positions contained in that particular petition. And although I don't have a public view as a park board president about the school board's plan, I did have a very strong view about some of the statements made in that petition, which I thought were inaccurate. So I posted a statement to my Facebook page saying, to the extent that you saw this shared petition, please note that that does not necessarily reflect my views or the Park District's views of the information in the petition. And that I can't speak to what the school board has done with the statements that I made, but that is the reason behind it, and that's all that it was intended to represent, was that I am not trying to take a public statement on the school board's plan, but please try and get better information about what is going on than an online petition from people who are happening to oppose the referendum. So that's where we are. Do any other commissioners, since we're on this topic, have anything they want to add to that overview of where we are? Okay. Did you want to talk to us about schools now, or did you want to wait?
I can do either.
Well, I leave it. Okay. I'm going to watch. Okay. We've got lots of interesting things happening today. So.
I'd like to just.
Oh yes.
It's on the mic. Sure, Michael Starkman.
Can
Excuse me,
we
sir,
have you step up?
we're recording the meeting, so you have to be on tape and by the microphone. Thank you.
Michael Starkman,
Your address?
528 Burton.
Thank you.
Miss Singer made what I thought was a very well reasoned statement and some excellent questions, and I'm wondering, and perhaps you can answer this, does the board typically make some attempt to answer questions by email or otherwise? And if the board does in this case, could you email me a copy?
So the answer to that question, if I'm answering your question, I can't say we don't answer questions, can I? I would say it really depends on the question. If it's something that we can answer without having to deliberate on an item that's not on the agenda, let me even take a step farther back, just so everybody's on the same page. There's something in Illinois called the Open Meetings Act, which governs how all government agencies conduct business. And I say this for a reason. Boiling it all down, we are limited to taking action on items that are on an agenda. If there are items that are not on an agenda, we can talk about it, but we can't take official action. So to answer a question, if that constitutes taking an official action, making a position on behalf of the park board, has to be a duly noticed agenda item that the public is given notice of, invited to attend, and then we address it. So if it's possible to answer a question that does not require that very elaborate process, then we're happy to do so. Otherwise, we'll take it under advisement, put the item on the agenda, and then address it when we have it duly noticed. As you can imagine, there are a few people that probably share your interest in this topic, and they want to come and listen to it. So with that in mind, I tried to answer as many of the questions that I thought I could based on what we've already said publicly. Was there some other topic that was asked that I didn't cover? And I'll see if I can do it without creating any issues.
Well, I think just the core of what was asked, I think, had to do with the Park District's intentions with regard to the future of the space, if in fact there is a deal made with 112, what control that will remain over it, and so forth. So those are the, that entire spectrum of questions is
sure
what I was interested in. I was less interested in the Facebook post question. That's just
me too.
Personally.
So I hear you. I tried to address that by saying that the Park District really comes to these negotiations with the latitude to try and negotiate as much control as we think is appropriate. That doesn't necessarily mean the school district is going to agree to that, but we could certainly go in and say we want to make sure that there is a portion of the park that is dedicated for community use and that it has community access, and the part that is being used by the school has to have shared space with the Park District under certain circumstances. Now, they could say we can't do that for X, Y, and Z, and that doesn't work for them, but we certainly have the latitude to have that conversation. And we certainly understand the concerns of the community regarding public access and maintaining it as green space. So it is going to be part of the conversation that we have with the school district. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
There's another point that just fled in my head. I'm sure I'll think of it in a second. Okay. Anything else on schools, which I definitely think is worth the time? Yeah. You can still stay after you talk. You don't have to leave.
Well, that's what he says.
I guess a quick question, have you seen the latest plan for the park, the reconfiguration plan for the space? Oh, sorry. I've only done this twice so far. And it always seems to be raining when I show up here, but my name's Hillel Singer. I'm married to Helen Singer. We live, within walking distance normally of the park. And so I guess my first I brought some, the latest middle campus site plan, if you haven't seen it, to distribute. Among the school board members. I'm not going to go down it point by point. My wife covered a lot of ground, even though we never exchanged notes. So basically, I'm going to give an edited version. I'll be jumping around here. Hopefully I'm not taking up too much time here. But
You think we can do this in about 5 minutes?
Oh, yeah.
Great.
And basically, I'm just going to say my family's fortunate to live within a short walking distance of Westridge Park, a local treasure that has served our community in so many immeasurable ways for over 50 years. Just this last Sunday, I decided to conduct an informal fact-finding mission to see what makes this particular location so special, or not. And as I entered the walking path at the southwest corner of the park just off Red Oak Lane, I passed a couple walking their dogs. Turning north along the park, I passed the new playground where grandparents, parents, and grandchildren were enjoying a family outing on the new swings and slides. I headed east along the path and saw a mom, dad, and 2 young children playing in the kiddie town just west of the building. A group of teenagers were having a touch football game on the field. This really happened. I also passed a middle-aged couple in which the wife was taking pictures of the fall foliage here. They're new to the community. They live on Ridge Road and love West Ridge Park. As I continued along the path, I couldn't help but think how fortunate we are and to have enjoyed and benefited from the recreational, socialization, and community building opportunities West Ridge Park has afforded the entire community for over the last 50 years. It's a park that any community would kill for, and I thought, how can anyone assign a dollar value to these opportunities that so many in our community take for granted? How does one assign a value to them in terms of a land or building swap? I don't think anyone can, frankly. I have a couple of short stories related to the park. My wife met another young mother who's become one of her best friends for 27 years and counting at the Moms and Tots program in this building. Our family lives by the park. Her friend came from the Northwood area. Our daughters are now best friends and raising their families in the area. They avail themselves of the park amenities at every opportunity they can. Who can say what would have happened if this building wasn't here? I've played many games I'm a baseball player. I played a gazillion games of fast pitch, 16-inch, slow pitch here at West Ridge. I competed against people from all parts of Highland Park and Deerfield. It was always, I saw the lights tonight, and it reminded me, and I had it in my little speech here, that it was always cool to play the late game with the park lights on. In addition to our friends and families sitting in the bleachers, there were always children from the neighborhood that would be walking or riding through the park by themselves or with parents who would stop for a few minutes to watch and enjoy the game. How does one put a value on this experience? It's priceless. My last little anecdote relates to my 21-year-old nephew who just graduated college in 3 years with the intention of going to graduate school to study psychology. He's a very cool and accomplished young man, and however, it wasn't always this way with him. He had significant learning disabilities and was a very hyper and socially awkward as a young adolescent. To say he had energy to burn was an understatement. He didn't play organized sports, even though he was the tallest kid in the class, and which would have been a healthy outlet for his energy, and he didn't have a lot of friends to pal around with. Fortunately, he lived on Strathairn over here, 2 blocks from West Ridge. His favorite activity at the time was to get on his bike and ride laps around this park for hours. The park was like a trusted friend to him. It was a place where he could exercise and find peace of mind. His parents knew where he was and knew he was in a safe place. How do you put a price on that? How am I doing with time? Do I still got a couple of minutes?
Not a lot.
Okay. I'm sure there are many other residents of the community who would share similar stories with them. This park is a place where new friendships are forged and the sense of community is nurtured. It features a very accessible location. It's a safe place to recreate, relax, and enjoy nature. How do you put a value on these? And frankly speaking, it's these very recreational, socialization, and community building aspects of our park that the 112 school board either doesn't get or has chosen to ignore for their own purposes. To them, this park is just a means to their end of building a massive single school, a solution to their massive traffic problems. And then I would just have you, I see you're taking a look at the berm. I mean, at the latest park reconfiguration plan, which, varies from week to week. And, I would just highlight that at least my favorite features, in addition to a play field and a kiddie ball diamond and some open areas, along this service road that's going to go through the park. is you have these berms of undetermined height and width running the entire length of the service roads. In 2 areas, there will be sound walls of undetermined height and length because there is no room to add berms as a buffer to the service roads. They're right next to somebody's house. And the sole purpose of these berms will be to absorb the sound and diesel exhaust fume pollution emitted from the buses. And where will the particulates in the exhaust go? What are the chances of these particulates winding up in the fields? And then I would just, I know you're in a tough place, and I understand you have a desire to leave this building, and I'm fine with that. But I do think other alternatives exist to simply conveying the building and land to the school that will meet this need. And the first one I would suggest is just tear down the building and create additional open space, period. Whatever the cost it takes to tear down this building, I can tell you this taxpayer will consider it a worthwhile investment in the future of Highland Park. The other idea would be to go out proposals on redevelopment of the building, just like the city is doing with the movie theater property. I think that would generate a great deal of interest. Let the marketplace assign a value to the building, stipulate to the developer the land will remain the property of the Park District and under the control of the Park District and function as it currently does.
Great, thank you very much. If there are written comments that you didn't get to, if you want to submit them to us, we're happy to read them. If you want to...
You know what, I'll send an email.
That'd be great. We'll
All
make
right,
sure
thank
that
you.
gets circulated. Send it to Liza, and she'll get it to all of us.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Anybody else want to talk to us about schools or any other item on the agenda? Okay. Thank you all very much. So that brings us to our next item, which is our consent agenda. The commissioners will see listed there items A through E, which have been either provided in our board packets or discussed at prior meetings. Could I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any debate? Hearing none, can we please call the roll?
Commissioner Bernstein?
Aye.
Commissioner Flores Weiskopf?
Aye.
Commissioner Kaplan?
Aye.
Vice President Ruttenberg?
Aye.
President Myers?
Aye. The motion passes. The consent agenda is approved. All right. That brings us to unfinished business, 3 items there. The first is Highland Park Country Club issues. Executive Director McElroy.
Yes, it is with sadness and shock. I talked to you about this a little over a week, or last week actually, that the general manager of the Highland Park Country Club, Gordon Acton, passed away suddenly a week ago. I think it was
Monday.
a week ago last weekend. We learned of it on Monday. Gordon had been an employee with Kemper Management, and as you all know, Kemper runs the Highland Park Country Club. So upon learning of this, we spoke with Kemper, and then we went over and met with some of the representatives from Kemper to talk about, to certainly express the Park District's condolences, and then to talk to them about any support that we could provide, because this was a shock to everyone. And I will tell you that it really had a deep effect on the staff because it was so sudden. But I wanted to share that with you, and that at the meeting that we had, we talked with the management of Kemper about the future of the Highland Park Country Club, just in terms of day-to-day operations, and assured them again that anything that the Park District could do to help get through this period, that we're there for them. And so what we had agreed upon, Kemper had already done some of its own investigation in terms of staffing and whatnot. And we just agreed that we would wait until after services were held. The Park District has sent a card and condolences to the family, and the actual service is taking place this evening. But that I wanted to assure you and the users of the Highland Park Country Club that we will work with Kemper through this time. Kemper has identified some people who could be potential replacements. And I will say that Kemper handled it very well. They brought a counselor out, a grief counselor out to meet with the staff. So it's not something, as the representative from Kemper said, there's no playbook for this kind of thing. You deal with it as best you can. And as I said, we certainly provide our support to them. So I think we are in budget time, and we're moving forward on issues, but I just wanted to let you know that we will be having a meeting with Kemper probably next week to talk about staffing issues and then future management issues with Kemper in regard to the Highland Park Country Club. So that's really just more informational and sad.
It is very unfortunate, and our obvious sincere condolences to the
Yeah.
family.
Gordon was a good man, and he was very involved in what was going on at the country club, and he really will be missed. So,
Anything from the board? Okay. Next item is the City of Highland Park's request to build a 43,000 square foot community center on a portion of existing green space in Sunset Woods Park. Executive Director McElroy.
so this is another informational update item. The City of Highland Park and the Community Family Center and the Park District has been involved in discussions, and for a period there, NSSRA was also involved in discussions about the potential for a community family center, and the location that was being evaluated was over at Sunset Woods Park on the southeast side. I brought a site plan, and we've talked about this in the past, but I had talked with Scott and wanted to bring everyone up to speed on this, because for those of you who have lived in Highland Park for a long time, these are discussions about finding a new home for the Community Family Center that have been going on for a long time. But with the city's involvement, the talks are moving forward, and the Community Family Center has actually hired a firm to help them with their fundraising. The city has pledged support. The city, however, has not approved the actual plan. And the meetings continue, and the campaign is going forward. So I think the public will start to hear more about this project as we go forward. The task force meets every other month, and we are at a point now. Again, the Park District's role here is only to provide land. The building, as Scott mentioned, is 43,000 square feet. It would affect 1.3 acres of land, and I believe it's the southeast quadrant of the park, and you can see it shaded on the site plan. But going forward, I think that the game plan right now is, based on the meeting that took place last week, is the city manager would like to come and make a presentation regarding this proposed facility. And so I just wanted to let you all know, because this is something that it's been in the paper a little bit, but not in any real detail. So I think we wanted to bring this up so that people are aware that this is going on. If people ask you any questions, no commitments have been made on the part of anyone, but I think now that it is getting legs in terms of a real fundraising campaign and the city's support of the program, I think that we wanted to make you aware of this and what potentially can happen with discussions going forward.
Thank you. And certainly, as we've heard in some of our other meetings and other contexts, there's a heightened sensitivity, understandably so, in our community anytime there's a discussion of putting a structure on green space. And this is potentially a very large structure on a very popular park. And so we wanted to make sure that we were getting the appropriate feedback from the community and the other interested parties so we can make an informed decision on whether and how to proceed. So I think what might make sense, since the city manager has offered to come and provide a presentation to the board, we schedule a meeting for her to do that. And we can send out word. I don't know that we've got our if you look at our calendar, our workshop meetings, where we typically do this, and our regular meetings are fairly crowded. So it may make sense, and we can work with the city on this, to schedule a separate standalone meeting involving just this topic, and also have the public come and share their thoughts with us as well. There are some other topics that we'll get to later that we may be able to roll into another public forum meeting, I suppose, because there are a variety of things that I think we would like to hear the community discuss. So that would be my thought, but certainly happy to entertain other thoughts from the board.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
We should have that presentation.
Okay. Any objections to it? Okay.
Can we do it at a workshop?
I don't know that we have room in a workshop. If we do, we will. If not, we'll have to schedule a separate standalone meeting for this. So,
That's fine.
Liza, if you would reach out to Gita and see what we can get on the calendar.
Yeah, she and I have talked, and I told her that I was giving the update tonight.
Great.
And that I would get back to her, so.
Okay.
and Councilman Bloomberg is here, so he too will.
I haven't talked specifically to our manager, but my sense is that it may be a while off, if that would be appropriate. As you've mentioned, frankly, a lot of this is quite amorphous. Where the plan is going to be, whether it's necessary in the end to actually ask for a portion of the park or not. We certainly do support the project in the sense of what it represents. There's a lot of discussion among the professionals and within the city council about how that's going to occur. But I'm delighted to hear that the manager is interested in making a presentation.
Excellent, thank you. I'll certainly coordinate with you all to find an appropriate schedule for that. Okay, anything else on this topic?
This is very interesting to me because I'm on the senior advisory for the city and I didn't know what you were talking about.
Well, and that's,
Someone hasn't better information.
Excuse me, ma'am, can you identify yourself?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm Janet Bernstein, 1616 Grove, and I come to meetings. I'm quite surprised by this commentary about the building because we're not up to where you are.
well, and that's why we thought it would be a good idea to start getting feedback from the community, educating the community. You know, it is not uncommon for us to hear after we've had several meetings talking about a topic, why wasn't I notified of this? So we want to try and avoid that here and make sure that people are aware of the proposal and where we're going. And I think I speak for all of the commissioners when I say we definitely would like to hear from the community in terms of what their view is on having a structure that size in Sunset Park.
Thank you on behalf of the people who are on this particular voice. Yes, please.
You're welcome. Councilman.
I wanted to address that briefly, which is that the use of the community family center, whether it includes a new senior center or whether the senior center is relocated somewhere else, that is a discussion that should certainly be had with the city of Highland Park. The Park District's role in this may or may not be to participate in terms of providing land. In terms of the use, I don't know that the Park District is going to be that involved in. There are several organizations that want to be involved in that, who need a home, and there are discussions about what the appropriate mix is, whether that would include a senior center or not, is very much up in the air. It has been addressed modestly in the past through the city, and it will certainly be noticed very heavily if that program proceeds. There have been discussions about relocating a senior center elsewhere, of course.
And just to follow up on that and to respond to your comment, Mrs. Bernstein, because I do attend these meetings, or if I am not able to attend, we get copious notes on the meetings, which is nice. So the one thing that has been discussed is having a meeting with the seniors, and I believe it's your commission and other seniors who are currently using the Senior Center of Highland Park to talk about this very concept. So. And I think this is why we wanted to have it as an update item on the agenda tonight, because I think there are people out there that aren't aware of it and what the potential for the building is. So it's coming. It's just, you're just getting a jump start on it here tonight. And the other thing that I did not mention, the Park District would be donating a 1.3 acres of land. The city also has city land that it will be donating, if that is the desire as well. So,
This is
Well, we kept the seniors who are, I'm on the advisory board for the Park District also, and you've kept us up to date.
Well, thank you again. Appreciate that. And I think, hopefully too, as we talk more about Greenprint, we've got that coming to one of our meetings. That will also be a component of that as well, as we've talked about in some of our other public meetings. There are opportunities with respect to the seniors with some of the Park District facilities and some of the plans that we have considered. So I think we will have an opportunity to get into even more detail as we go forward. Okay. Anything else on this topic? Okay. Last item of unfinished business is our Park Avenue Task Force update.
I was also asked if I would provide an update on the Park Avenue Task Force, and believe it or not, it has been 1 year since the task force has been meeting, almost. Just a brief background, the Park District and the City of Highland Park have had a lease for the Park District to lease space at Park Avenue for recreational purposes. That began in 1981. The lease expired, and it has been on the to-do list for both the City of Highland Park and for the Park District to get that lease renewed. And so last spring, we actually, the city manager and I engaged in some conversations about an amended lease or some type of lease for Park Avenue. And at the same time, the city was having conversations. They were in the process, I believe, if not finished, very close to being finished, to a major renovation of the water treatment plant. So there was discussion based on security recommendations that access to Park Avenue would be prohibited. One of the recommendations was that everything south of the water plant would be prohibited to public access. This information, we received a letter from the city in September of last year, and we notified our boaters, and subsequently the boating public came to both meetings of the city council. And last year on September 23rd, the Park District also had a meeting, and we invited the boating public to come and attend that meeting to speak about boating. Also at that meeting were representatives from the City of Highland Park, and there was a lot of discussion at that meeting, and a couple of things came out of the meeting. From the city's end, the city had agreed that they would continue to provide access to Park Avenue during the summer of 2015. The initial recommendation was to potentially have that shut to public access this past summer. In addition to that, the Park District had some discussions and how to help resolve this issue with the boaters, and had discussed the idea of forming a task force made up of the boating community to study the issue. So at that September 23rd meeting, the board approved the formation of the Park Avenue Task Force meeting. Discussions continued at that meeting, and it was also agreed that the city would put together some perimeter boundaries of a potential fence around the water treatment plant that would still allow access to the South Beach, but it would be limited in some capacity. So they agreed that they would present something of that nature to the task force. So the task force actually...
Just to be clear, when you talk about the South Beach, we're talking about where the yacht club
yes,
is and the boat
yes,
launch?
Where the yacht club is, where the boat launch is, and that parking area that is immediate, right in between the boathouse and the ramp.
Okay.
So with that being said, the task force had its first meeting almost 1 year ago, November 5th, 2014. And it was at that meeting that the city presented to the Park District and into the task force what the proposed perimeter for the fence would be to protect the water treatment plant, but still to be able to allow public access to the boat ramp and the boathouse. So there were some challenges because part of the agreement with the fence was that the West Road, which is really the main entry for our current flow of traffic, would be shut off to the public, and so we had to work around that perimeter. It was the parameters of the perimeter, I think we called it throughout. So the Park District and the task force, and we had representatives from the Park Board and the City Council, and then staff of the city and the Park District with the boating public continued to study this issue over the course of the past year. And in March of 2010, I keep saying 2010, in March of 2015, the task force actually came to the Park Board and presented its findings and had indicated that they were really having trouble trying to figure out this traffic flow, if it was going to work, to the extent that the Park District staff had engaged in PDRMA, who is our Risk Management Association, to weigh in on the proposed traffic plan. PDRMA's recommendation at the time was to engage this study, get a civil engineer on board to look at the traffic plan and report back their findings.
And PDRMA is?
PDRMA is the Park District's Risk Management Association. It's our risk manager, it's our insurance. At any rate, so the city and the Park District agreed to share the costs of the engineer and we enlisted Gaywald Hamilton to come out and consult with us on this matter. So, closing, we've spent the summer, or it was late summer that we really got the meat of the considerations from Gaywald Hamilton. And I think they did an actual study, I believe it was July 4th weekend, because we wanted to pick a weekend that would be a busy weekend. Fortunately, Mother Nature cooperated, and they were able to get some boating counts and be able to actually evaluate the flow and so forth. So Gaywald Hamilton came back with a couple of different options for the Park District Task Force to opine upon. And we actually had a demo of one of the options, sort of an informal get-together one night at the beach. And then also, we tested that, and then the Dan Brinkman of Gaywald Hamilton actually came to a task force meeting, I believe it was September 5th or somewhere about there, that he came and met with the task force and answered questions and whatnot. The task force really felt that it was important that we have a demo with the engineer on site, and had some questions about what Kaderma thought about this, some of the that Gaywald Hamilton had proposed. So to make a year's worth of meetings a little less long, we did have a meeting on the 26th where we had a demo, had representatives from the city there, the task force, et cetera. And the one thing that you could see in the demonstration was that the turns that were being proposed were working, but that there was a lot of restrictions that were going to be required for public access. And the representatives from the city that were there could not stay for the meeting part, but before they left, they said, let us look into the option of being able to provide a pedestrian walkway to this area, because the way that we had it configured was you had parking, there was two-way boat traffic, a pedestrian walkway, and the water plant. And without getting into too much more detail, it was really going to be a challenge operationally. I think everyone agreed to that. So the city had made that comment, and the Park District staff had said that operationally, the restrictions that we are going to have to employ with the option that we had been studying, minus any amendments by the city, was really going to be challenging, and we were not really excited to recommend that option. So the committee debated a bit, and I will also note that at that time, and I know Gene Sogan is in the audience, we sort of call it the Sogan Plan. David Sogan is a member of the task force, and they looked at one of the options. They looked at this option 3, as we'll call it, that we've been discussing, and they made a few tweaks, and he had given a copy of that plan to the task force. It was not discussed at that meeting. The staff had received a copy of it, and over the next couple of weeks, he then met independently of the task force with the city to talk about the plan. So we had the unknown of the city, if they were going to be able to provide pedestrian access somewhere not on the road, and then we also had David Sogan discussing a plan that had not been vetted through the committee. So last week, or I believe it was October 19th, and the letters, there's a letter from the city of Highland Park, and there's a response letter from the Park District. It's actually from Dave Fairman and myself to Gita, who had sent the letter. The city reported that they would provide a pedestrian walkway on the west side of the plant, so we could remove the pedestrian walkway, which, for those of you, Barney, Lori, and Brian have all been somewhat involved with the task force. You can see that removing the pedestrian walkway from the road helps, and that the city was also going to, there was a lot of discussion about the grassy area in front of the water treatment plant, that people wanted to still have access to that. So the city said yes, but we still had to talk to Paderma and the engineers about this new option that was this new amended action with the city. And also we hadn't talked about the Sogan option. So long story now over, at least for tonight, for me to share with you, is that, so we have met with, the staff have talked with the engineer, we've talked with Paderma about these new revised plans. we have a meeting tomorrow night with the Park Avenue Task Force to talk about this option and what opportunities we may have to make this work. And it is the intention that the Park Avenue Task Force will make a recommendation to the Park Board about what they see coming out of Park Avenue in the future. Does that make, I'm sure I confused some, but it's been a lot of work. There have been some twists and turns along the way. But I think that we hopefully are coming near, I think we may be coming near the end, but never say never.
Okay. So to clarify, the procedural steps for us then, the task force is continuing to meet and evaluating the proposals from the Sogan plan. Is that right? And
That
I
will
understand.
take place tomorrow.
And then at some point, the task force will be making a formal recommendation to the park board, at which point there will be an opportunity for us to evaluate that proposal, ask questions, and then
Yes.
decide how we want to proceed.
Yes.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Commissioner Bernstein?
Just what the procedure will be. Will the report from the task force, will that be a written report? Or are they coming to make a presentation to the board? What will the form of it be?
Well, it certainly will be a written report, and the last time they came and made a presentation to the board, but once I get the report, when we set the meeting agendas, I'll talk with the president and see how we want to proceed with that. But it will be, I mean, I'm sure that they will come and make their report.
Yeah, I think I would, unless people feel differently, I think it would make sense to have a live presentation from the task force.
That's
I'm sure
fine.
we will have questions. And then if we can take it under advisement, either take action that night, or if it's a workshop, we'll schedule it for
Yeah.
formal agenda action. Okay.
Yeah, and their recommendation, I think, will lead to a series of more questions, depending on what the option that comes out of the committee is. So, it has been, it's been a long road, but I think everyone has tried to do the best they can to, certainly on the task force and Dave Fairman, trying to keep things on task to get us to that place where we will come with a recommendation to the board.
Okay. So, and I read the letters that have gone back and forth. I just want to make sure I understand. The task force has not made a recommendation yet. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And there was a demonstration of some engineering proposals on the 26th.
No, there was.
There was. That
There-
was September 26th,
There
pardon me.
was a presentation,
Mhm.
but that was not adopted by the task force.
No, we only had discussions about that. And after the demonstration, that was when we learned that the city said, well, let us see if we can make a few more adjustments to make this work. 'Cause I think people recognized it was operationally challenging.
Now, according to the letter, that engineering, the meeting that took place after that presentation, the demo, there were concerns about public safety from that proposed recommendation?
Well, I think that the concern was that you have vehicles, you have boats, you basically have boat traffic, boats with trailers. You have pedestrians walking along a sidewalk that is adjacent to where boat traffic is trying to access the ramp and where boats and trailers are parking their cars. So safety, obviously, safety is a primary concern. And so, yes, safety was an issue.
And there were also concerns with lakefront access with this proposal?
Well, I think that in order to create as safe an environment as we could, the recommendations from staff were going to be to limit public access, the people that like to loop with their cars so that we can restrict vehicular traffic. And then we had also talked about, and again, these are all operational considerations, restricting the use of the boat launch to season pass holders only, just to try and keep that contained area for the power boaters as safe as we could.
Okay. Well, I think when the task force makes its recommendation, those are two areas that we're going to want to hear them discuss to the extent that is something that they can analyze. Safety is obviously first and foremost, and lakefront access, that's the whole purpose of the exercise, is to make sure the public, not just the boating community, but the entire public can continue to access the lakefront at Park Avenue in a meaningful fashion. So if the solution winds up precluding the problem, or the solution creates a problem that it was designed to solve, then it doesn't really get us to where we need to be. So if you could make sure that when you discuss this with Chairman Fairman, that those two issues are front and center as part of the proposal, that would be, I think, most helpful.
Yes.
Okay. Any questions or comments on this? Councilman?
A couple of things. First of all, the demonstration, the second demonstration, which I was present for with the city manager, was not billed as a meeting. And so our representative of the task force, which is Michelle Holman, is not present. I want to make that clear on your record. I also want to state that the original notice for the Park District was that the city had been advised that we have to provide security for the plant, and we wanted to work with the Park District to be able to continue to provide access to the extent that we could. Having been present for the demonstration, it is evident that the City of Highland Park has worked with the Park District through the option number 3 to provide safe access in the areas that were required, which is access to the boat launch and access for the North Shore Yacht Club. There was some concern expressed with respect to whether pedestrians should be in the area where vehicular traffic is. I believe that we have provided a solution to that as well. And what I want to be very clear about is that the city wants to provide the Park District the opportunity to continue to provide all of the operations at the Park Avenue beach that it currently provides.
Excellent, thank you. Well, it's always good to hear that the city and the Park District are on the same page in terms of our objectives here. I don't think there's any dispute that public safety and public access continue to be the hallmarks of the task force. It sounds like there may be a disconnect in the current perceptions, at least between the task force and the city.
As of tomorrow, Michelle Holman, Councilman Holman, and I will be at the task force. I'll be there initially just as a resident, since it's an open meeting. I'm going to take her place as the appointed person from the city to the task force, so there'll be greater consistency.
You're going to be replacing Councilman Holloman?
Since I'm the liaison to the Park District, I'm going to replace her on that board.
Well, welcome to the task force.
Thank you.
Because I know you needed some more meetings in your day.
I relish
One question on that regard then, and that's great, and I think it'd be wonderful to have you on board, and I think that will go a long way to trying to clarify some of the confusion that may have evolved over time. The October 19th letter that we got from the city manager, Gita, you were CC'd on it, the rest of the city council?
I've read.
Right. Was this, just so, again, there's nothing currently before us, but so I understand the city's position, does this reflect the view of city council? Does this reflect the view of the city manager, subject to city council review? Is this the city's actual formal position?
That we would be able to provide access to the west side of the building for pedestrians.
Well, let's see. There's a variety of different things in
My
here.
understanding is that was the principal proposal of the letter.
City will move the fence on the east side of the treatment plant from its originally planned security perimeter in order to provide some access to the grass, modifying the North Beach non-resident boat storage area for parking, widening the road, and allowing pedestrian access on the west side.
The letter provides the consensus of the city council. There's been no formal vote on it because we weren't asked to vote on it. But I will have a more definitive answer for the task force tomorrow night.
Oh,
But the answer is that there is a consensus of the city council. We did discuss whether there would be access available on the west side, and the general consensus is that that would be appropriate and available.
okay, so, again, what I'm trying to just avoid is wasting your time and wasting the task force
That's a
time.
managerial issue. I'm not sure it's really something that the council would vote on. We would like as much access available within the confines of needing to provide security to the plant.
Understood and appreciated. What I was trying to get at, probably not so elegantly, if the task force goes forward subject to the city's proposal in this letter and figure out a way to make it safe and provide the access, what I would be concerned if later on it turns out that what the task force was responding to was the city manager's view, not the city council's view, and then things change after
He
we.
has the support of the council.
Okay, so this letter, we can rely, the task force can rely on this in terms of what the city's willing to do at this stage. Wonderful. Excellent. Well, I look forward to a report from the task force tomorrow.
Yeah.
And,
I think that the one thing that the task force is really going to struggle over is the loss of a significant amount of parking in order to provide a safer environment for boats and pedestrians and everyone. And that's something that the engineers in Padurma have relooked at since we've gotten this new information that we'll be talking about tomorrow night as well.
Excellent.
So, more to follow.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? Great.
I have a question. I'm sorry, because I see Jean Sogan is here, and I was just wondering if Jean has something that she would like to add, because she participated in this process with the city.
Were you at the weekend meeting with the city on the Sogan plan?
Yeah.
Do you want to? I don't need to put you on the spot, but since Barney already did, if there's something you want to add, I'm happy to hear from you.
Inside the park?
My name's Jean Sogan. I live at 1092 Wade.
Hi, Jean.
Hi.
And I know, Jean, you've been attending the task force meetings. I've received copies of the minutes and notes that you've been taking.
The unofficial minutes.
They're not minutes, they're just perceptions.
So, just following up on Commissioner Ruttenberg's question, is there anything that you wanted to add to the conversation?
A couple of things.
Please.
First, that one of the significant things the engineering firm found was that on, I think it was the weekend of July 8th, it was right after the 4th of July, there were 300 cars coming down to the Park Avenue Beach that day. That's not just boaters. It's not just power boaters. It's not just the yacht club. It is a tremendous number of people who are, and since most of those don't have parking permits, what people like to do is just make that loop, and that we haven't, and in the task force, we haven't really addressed, we haven't heard a lot about those people who are really the casual users. And what's striking about the engineer's report is that there are so many of them, and we haven't had a way to reach out to them. And the other thing that it wasn't in the scope of the plan for the engineers, but on that particular day to get a good count of how many pedestrians are coming down, that he tried to go back and figure it out, but he knew he was undercounting it. And that, so those two big user groups have not really been at the party. And they're very important, is the first point. The second point was that, and Liza alluded to it, that one of the big problems with option 3, as Dan Brinkman presented it, was that we were losing a tremendous amount of parking spaces. More than half of the parking spaces would be gone. And that's throwing the baby out with the bathwater to a great degree. So one of the things that we really, really want to do is maintain as much parking as we can. And there's going to be a question. Oh, well, I'll just say it. That the engineer has said that there isn't enough space between on the east side for the parking and the two-way traffic by the water, and that because of that we'll have to go to parallel parking, and that loses an awful lot of space. As you know, David's a scientist, and he went down and measured and found out that the engineering firm had the truly wrong measurements, and that there is enough space for angled parking there, and that this isn't. Sometimes we're dealing in objective reality, and this one, it really is objective, very objective. That their numbers were not correct. But other than that, I think that we're really close to being to having a compromise that everyone can live with, and it's so I think that with those minor, I'm sorry to have focused on the hole instead of the donut, because there's a really big donut in this that a year ago it wasn't clear that there might be a compromise, and I think we may have found one.
That's excellent, and that really was the objective of the task force. So thank you and your husband for your efforts, and look forward to hearing the final recommendation. Anything else? Councilman, anything else on the topic? You good?
Not that would be relevant.
Okay, then we will change topics. This brings us back to, yeah, I'm just debating if we want to do new business before. No, it's all right, we can do the treasurer's report. Annette? Or Director Curtis, the treasurer's report.
Hello, everybody.
Good to see you.
I'm going to pass this along, but actually, I need one page back, if you please. Thank you.
Question is, which page does she want back?
Just the one. The page that's I'm handing out is the last page of the treasurer's report that is in your board packet. I just thought it'd be easier to have a paper copy in front of you. So tonight's treasurer's report is focusing on the projected year end for 2015. And starting this evening and finishing at the December board meeting, we'll be working through the 2016 budget and levy process. The first step in the process, which staff began working on in August, is reviewing and coming to understand the 2015 projected year-end numbers as they compare to the budget. So that's what we're going to be talking about this evening. The last page of the treasurer's report I just distributed to you, it's a comparison of the 2015 supplemental budget, which includes the Highland Park Country Club operation, with the projected year-end. So I'm going to move right to the bottom line.
Literally.
That's where everybody's eyes go, I know. So right to the bottom line, the 2015 budget included a planned deficit related to the use of reserves for capital projects. The good news, the deficit is smaller than the budget by $1.3 million. Obviously, this will have a positive effect on the 2016 beginning balances. So overall, operational revenue is lower than budgeted, but so are the operational expenditures. So the first item to note is property tax revenue. Property tax revenue is under budget by $247,000. And the property tax extension, or rather what the district should receive, was lower than budgeted. The budget was based on information provided by the county at about this time last year. That indicated that the EAV, or equalized assessed value, of the properties in the district will be increasing with new growth. This did not happen. The EAV actually decreased from the prior year. The CPI increase of 1.8% was captured. On the operational side, the Highland Park Country Club, Sunset Valley, and Hidden Creek are all weather-dependent operations, which suffered from the slower start of the summer warmer weather, and are projecting a loss for the year. This is reflected in the fees and charges line item. Also, banquets did not rebound after the question, would banquets remain open? Once that question was clarified and publicized, banquets did not rebound as much as it had been hoped. On a positive note, tennis, the recreation center, athletics, camps, and ice are all projecting gains for the year. With lower than budget revenues, staff kept expenditures in line, creating these gains. Moving down to the expenditure section, salaries and wages is under budget due to numerous positions remaining open, or which became open throughout the year as compared to the budget. Also, staffing structure in a few areas was changed. This savings, the net of the salaries, the health insurance, and pension cost, that savings compiled together totaled $1,041,000. So projected capital is under budget by $523,000 due to $70,000 in park equipment that was moved to 2016. Hidden Creek, the splash pad project, coming in under budget by $57,000,
and the asphalt work being put on hold until the asphalt study was completed. So just to recap real quickly, due to better than budgeted performance in some areas, open positions, and watching expenditures within capital and operations, the overall deficit of $1.3 million is less than the planned deficit from the 2015 supplemental budget. So looking forward, the 2016 budget will be presented at the November 10th workshop meeting. Staff has created a budget based on 2015's level of activity, some redesigning some areas and starting some new initiatives, and just overall planning for a stronger year. Are there any questions, concerns?
Just to clarify, when we talk about a planned deficit, if I recall correctly, what we're saying is we knew that we had to allocate some of our reserves to pay for some capital improvements, capital expenses, particularly Rosewood.
Rosewood is...
Right?
Yes.
Which we had budgeted for. So
Correct.
this is one of those areas where public accounting and governmental accounting are a little bit different in terms of how they would look at this.
Yes.
So if we're looking at this as though we were an actual corporation, wouldn't be showing a deficit, it would be a capital expense.
Yeah, it's a
Advertiser.
contribution to capital.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So we actually did better than we had anticipated doing.
Yes, by $1.3 million.
Don't spend it all in one place.
It's going back into capital.
Appreciate that too.
I'm sure we can find a way to spend that money.
Wisely,
Yeah,
yes. Yes, it'll be utilized wisely.
Yes.
Any questions from the board?
No, I'm glad you clarified the definition, though.
Yeah, it always sounds.
It does.
A good thing sounds like a bad thing. It always makes me nervous.
It does, and that's one of the confusions between a business accounting and a governmental accounting.
But I do have one question.
Yes, please.
We're trying to provide an addition to our capital reserve every year of approximately $1 million. Was that the number we've talked about?
Yes.
So does this, with this adjustment, mean it's going to be closer to $2 million?
No, I'm not going to change the year-end transfer that was budgeted. I would prefer to leave it in 2016's beginning balances, see how the activity for 2016 falls out, and then make the transfer at the end of that year.
Okay.
It's kind of a conservative approach, I know, but
that's really more of a cash flow management
it's a
issue,
cash flow
right?
management
From a
thing,
substantive
and
standpoint,
it's also
really 2.3.
It's also trying to address the fund balance policy requirement that we need to fulfill.
Right.
But as President Meyer said, it's cash flow versus definitional. It is really 2.3 million versus an anticipated 1 million.
Actually, the budgeted transfer for 2015 is at $4 million. Actually, it's $5 million, but it's looking like it would be, we should be able to meet that $5 million because this is getting into more detail than maybe your question you were anticipating. The fund balance within the recreation fund where we move our transfers to support capital from was higher than necessary, that what's needed to fulfill the fund balance policy. So for in the 2015 budget, we were actually moving $5 million.
So when we talk about fund balance, just so we're all on the same page, really we're talking about effectively capital reserves, rainy day funds,
Yes.
which are subject to a different standing policy. So we're basically putting some money in the bank for later and being able to return some money. We have more money in our checking account at the end of the year than we thought we would.
And we'll get into more of an explanation of the transfers and
Right.
things on November 10th when I go through the 2016 budget.
Order your tickets now.
Yes, it's going to be awesome.
Sneak preview.
It's all
at
very
the
exciting.
Finance Committee meeting, which will take place next week, which we will be posting.
Yeah.
So,
Excellent.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you very much. Thank you. Always like to hear happy news during the treasurer's report. All right, so that brings us to new business. The first item we've already addressed, which was our resolution recognizing Mr. Carger. The next item, I think, is less pleasant, and I'm going to address this one. And the item is the renaming, or at least the potential renaming of Jensen Park. And there will be a PowerPoint to accompany this, a short one. So And I should start off by saying, really, the objective today for this presentation is to raise the issue with the commissioners, the board, and with the community, and to invite public comment. We talked about possibly scheduling a public meeting to address this issue, and we'll revisit the definitive next step once we get through this part of the presentation. So let me, if anybody wants to move, feel free to see if this will work from back here. Okay. So let me start with a background discussion, just very briefly, of Mr. Jensen. He was born in 1860 in Denmark, served in the Prussian army for 3 years. We would call that the German army today, effectively. Came to the U.S. in 1884, where he wound up working for the Chicago Park District. It was called the West Park Commission back in those days, and rose through the ranks of the Park District, and eventually becoming the general superintendent in 1905. At the completion of his service with the Park District, he retired from public service and moved here to Highland Park to Ravinia, and he started his own private landscaping business, architectural design, landscaping architecture. Received a number of significant commissions from very prominent members of not only the community, but from around the country. He eventually left Highland Park and moved to Ellison Bay, Wisconsin, where he passed away in 1951 at the age of 91. So the question is, why are we talking about Mr. Jensen at all? Well, as you may know, one of our parks is named after Mr. Jensen. It's a park in Ravinia that in 1980 was renamed by the Park District at the urging of a significant number of requests from the community. It was a park that he designed and now is known as Jens Jensen Park. So Mr. Jensen's name had come up frequently during a variety of our meetings in a variety of different contexts. Candidly, I did not know much about him, and given the prominence with which he seemed to have in the community and the degree to which he was brought up during conversations, particularly by members of the community, and particularly in Ravinia, I wanted to learn more and understand who he was, what he was, and develop an appreciation for what it was that made him so important nationally in Highland Park. One of the things that Mr. Jensen was known for was his ardent commitment to using native plants in his landscaping designs. He believed significantly that foreign plants should not be used as part of the design process. He opposed the use of non-native plants in American parks and gardens and promoted what we call the regional prairie style, which is still reflected in his designs, including the park here. He believed that ideas about nation and race and the natural environment were closely interrelated. He wrote, I think, a significant article on landscaping in 1923 in a German journal, which is called Translated Garden Beauty. I'm not going to attempt the actual German name, I will share this with you because I think it gives some insight into the relationship between his notions of landscape design and his notions of races. And so this is his quote from his article from 23. "Perhaps it may be too restricted to design a landscape picture only by the means of simple indigenous plants. But please consider that it was them amongst whom we grew up, that they taught us a particular language without interruption since the earliest days of our tribe, that they are interwoven with the soul of our race, and indeed no art of landscape gardening will be called true art and will be able to reflect the soul of a tribal people if it does not take as its means of expression from the environment of these people." So, as he said throughout his career, he truly believed that native plants were a reflection of the native people, and that foreign plants reflected an invasion of foreign thinking into the native horticulture. There has been a variety of academic research and discussion talking about the significance of that worldview, this notion that race and botany are interrelated. And there is considerable discussion of the fact that this was related and consistent with the rise of National Socialism, the Nazi Party in Germany, and that this notion was used as both a metaphor and to support some of the concepts that arose in Germany. What I want to talk about today, or at least raise for you, is not get into the academic literature, which has people talking about what they think of him, but I thought it would be useful for everyone to hear what it is that he said himself about his worldview. And so what I've collected are some, certainly not all of his quotes, dealing with this notion of race. And I'm going to violate one of my own rules. I typically don't like to read off PowerPoint slides, but I think here it will make sense. And what you'll see on the PowerPoint presentation is I've included the source material, where these come from. And as I said, I've limited this preliminary discussion just to what came out of Jens Jensen's mouth on his own terms. So he said in 1936, quote, "I am searching for the new ideals of your country, and I fail to see much. It is all the restoration of old gardens. There are new things, but they smack of the Latin or the black man's intellect, and not of yours. Mediterranean intellect is driving northward. It has penetrated into my country and into the rest of my Scandinavian kin. Is this a spiritual weakness of the Germanic races?" He also wrote later in 1936, "They are really trying to do something over there in Germany." That was obviously during the rise of National Socialism and the Nazi Party. Whether they shall succeed or not, I don't know, but there is a real urge. Also from 1937, and I think this one is particularly insightful. Jensen said, quote, "The gardens that I created myself shall be in harmony with their landscape environment and the racial characteristics of its inhabitants. They shall express the spirit of America and therefore shall be free of foreign character as far as possible. The Latin and the Oriental crept and creeps more and more over our land, coming from the south, which is settled by Latin people, and also from the other centers of mixed masses of immigrants. The Germanic character of our race, of our cities and settlements was overgrown by foreign character. Latin spirit has spoiled and still spoils things every day." It goes without saying that I am merely reading these. I am certainly in no way endorsing any of these sentiments, but I think it's important that we understand the situation that we're dealing with. Mr. Jensen said in 1939, "The influence of the Mediterranean, where the Latin race lives, has created a distinct character quite different from that of the Germanic races." In 1941, he said, quote, "Some of Hitler's ideas I like very much." In 1920, Mr. Jensen wrote a letter to Henry Ford's General Secretary, E.J. Liebold, where he expressed concern of the practice of importing workers from Southern Europe and from the southern portions of the United States, suggesting that mixing of races would reduce, quote, "vitality and intellect." Needless to say, I find these statements to be very troubling. I find it very troubling that the Park District has embraced this person and provided the honorific of naming a park after him, understanding, of course, that he did design the park. So I think it is important that we as a board decide whether, now that we are aware of this situation, we would like the name to remain or whether we should take steps to change it. What we would change it to is a different issue. And although I personally would like to vote today to address it, I understand that this is a significant issue for the community, and I understand that there are a number of people who hold Mr. Jensen in very high regard, presumably despite his racial views, and certainly not because of them. Let me stop there and invite comment from the rest of the board, and then we can decide how we want to proceed.
Well, Scott, let me begin. We had talked previously about this, and It's actually, it's ironic that Gene Sogans is here this evening because Gene and I actually worked together to landmark, I think the only landscape landmark in the city of Highland Park, which was a Jensen designed property. Excuse me? For a German Jew. And Gene and I worked together in order to have that landscaping landmarked and also and then improved with a certificate of appropriateness. So I think Gene is the former chairman of the Historical Preservation Commission who has a lot of insight into not only Jensen himself, but also the context of what he did for this community. That she would be a really good, I like to hear what Gene has to say, maybe not tonight, but at some point. But I also think that the current Historical Preservation Commission may be a good resource to try some additional information to find out, because obviously they are very in tune to a lot of things that Mr. Jensen had to, that he stood for. I understand, unlike you, I have not looked into this independently. I have not read any books or researched them, although I worked on landmarking one of his properties and one of his landscape designs. I just want to note that, there's many prominent figures in American history that have things that we would not be proud of today. There's a very large monument in Washington, D.C. to Thomas Jefferson, and we all know that he owned slaves and may have fathered some children through the slaves. We also know that Charles Lindbergh, who was very well known in this country for flying to France, is revered in this country. Yet, many think that he was a Nazi sympathizer also. So, I understand what you're saying. I get it. I think it requires an additional study, and I would like to bring in the preservationist community in this town who have, I guess, much more knowledge than I do on Jensen to get their opinions and their feedback on this. And if Jean's willing to look at, also, I know she's got a lot of resources at her disposal, because we've had many discussions over the past about Jensen and other prominent both designers of both architecture and landscapes that is shown in Highland Park, that she's a very good resource that we can use to try to analyze this question.
Okay. Any other comments from the board?
May I?
Please.
While I respect what your view is, Cal, to me, if his statements are correctly quoted, it's showing an undercurrent that is very different from the work he did. The work he did may be worth preserving, but the honor of the character of the gentleman may not be. And in many ways, this is akin, in my mind, to putting up the Confederate battle flag that people resisted for years on the basis of it has historic significance. And I'm all in favor of pursuing, as you're suggesting, whether what we're seeing is an accurate representation of Jens Jensen. I think we have to distinguish the design that he did on the ground versus honoring the person. And I'm more inclined to say this is a human relations issue versus a preservation issue. And I think that's a whole different way of approaching it. We're not going to take away the designs. We're not going to take away the fountains and the park, but honoring a person who is expressing sentiments that I find offensive, to me, is just, we could take a vote right now, and I would vote very clearly. We change it. But I'm more than willing to get more information and verify this.
Thank you.
I think those are great points, President Myers. Thank you for the research you did, and it is important to verify this. And Commissioner Bernstein, you're so right in that there are very prominent people who we wouldn't be proud of who they are necessarily, but we are proud of what they did. But I would not want to shy away from this. I think it's a very unique opportunity for the Park District to possibly right or wrong. We do represent. I mean, being Spanish myself, it's always hard to hear things like this, especially so. I mean, I don't know why we just don't name it the Latin and Black Park and be done with it, honestly. But yes, Commissioner Ruttenberg, it's not the work we're denying, but it's the honor that we've bestowed on, our parks are valued around here, and it's a big deal. So I do think it's important to verify more, but I'm not going to shy away from taking a stand, because if this is indeed true, I would vote without having to think twice about it that we rename it. To what, I don't know, but it definitely is, it's worth looking into a little bit further.
Thank you, Commissioner Foskoska. Commissioner Kaplan, please.
I think what Commissioner Bernstein, not speaking for you, is all he's saying is, and I get it's a human resource issue, and I understand it's offensive, but we have a preservation committee here, we have a preservation group, let's hear what they have to say. They named this park after him. I can't imagine they did it with no research at all. And hearing all the facts can't hurt us. I think based on the quotes, we all feel the same. But let's have full ammunition and then move forward.
Okay. Any other comments?
So what kind of process, what kind of procedure do you want to embrace with regard to trying to, number one, investigate, number two, to solicit community input? I mean, Barney mentioned, the human relations. We have the chairman of the city's Human Relations Committee are also here this evening.
Oh, we can just get this done now.
We got the Historical Preservation Human Relations here. So
let's not put anybody, obviously, if either of you would like to speak to this, you are more than welcome, but I would be happy to have you give it some thought and come back at a later date. I'm sure we will be having this conversation. I would suggest two courses of related action. One is a bit more just pragmatic. We have our counsel with us. If you could find out procedurally what we would need to do if we wanted to change the name, landmark, historical preservation approval, whatever it is, just so we understand what the process looks like. So if we decide to do it, we're ready to go. In terms of substance, I would suggest that we ask for input from Human Relations, from Historical Preservation. So I'd be interested in the City Council's view on this, Mayor Rodering's view on this. The Ravinia Neighbors Association, absolutely. There are other organizations that we should be reaching out to on this.
I think that's it. I think actually you raised a really good point, because I think we went over this with the city wanting to put a sign in that park, a directional sign, that this park is landmarked, and it's subject to regulation by the Historical Preservation Commission of the City of Highland Park. And I don't know if you could talk, Rob, if you could check and see what kind of authority they would have, that if we would have to go to the if we decide we want to change the name, that does the city's Historical Preservation Commission have any type of authority over that, like veto power, as a result of the fact that the property is landmarked? I don't know the answer to that question. Maybe Tony does.
I'm also the liaison to the...
I'm telling you, we just haven't...
Of course you are.
I can tell you that if you change the name and you want to change a plaque or put up a sign, most likely will require a certificate of appropriateness to be approved by the Historic Preservation Commission under most circumstances.
Hmm?
However, there may be an exception because you're a governmental entity. So obviously, your council is going to take a look at it. I think our council will also have to advise us as to the scope of the authority of that commission. I know they'll want to weigh in on it, at least publicly, whether they can enforce what their positions are. You may be interested in hearing that regardless of whatever their enforcement powers are.
So then, under those circumstances, I envision, unless people have another thought, perhaps a meeting where we would invite the relevant government officials who have an interest in the topic to share their thoughts with us, invite the public to attend as well, get the public's view on this, and then we can make a very informed decision once we've heard all of the interested parties. Anybody have an objection to that as a general approach?
No.
Concurrent with Rob's analysis of the legality. Okay, well, staff is directed accordingly. Coordinate with city, Ravinia Neighbors.
We'll talk to Rob and City and Jean and everyone.
Okay. I appreciate your consideration of the issue. Okay, well, this seems like an odd transition, but our next topic is the Hidden Creek Aqua Park Fair report. Sorry, guys, did not mean to set you up like that.
I did too. Okay.
That was a buzzkill. Now we go to the water.
Exactly.
On a much lighter note.
Please.
Good evening. This summer was a very exciting summer at Hidden Creek Aqua Park. We had a lot of projects this summer that took place. Very exciting. Our internal goal as a staff was to focus on some of the different projects that were performed during the off season. Our external goal as a staff was to ensure that we created the wow factor on opening day. And as you may remember, back in 2012, we did a survey with the community to see what kind of amenities would be an improvement to Hidden Creek. At that, a new splash pad was number one on the list. And so with the direction of the Hidden Creek Advisory Committee and the Park District Board, that came true this summer. We renovated the park with a brand new splash pad, along with several other new projects this summer. So some of the other new projects that took place, we had a new splash pad, as I mentioned. We also had, we repainted the pool. We renovated the slides, resurfaced them, recolored them for a brand new look into the park. And we oversaw the project starting in January for all these projects going on at the same time. And we took that all the way into May 23rd for the opening day, where we had a splash bash, which introduced our new splash pad with removal of the sand area, and a brand new splash pad, which was geared towards 2 to 10 year old kids. And we really got great feedback, especially at that event. Luckily, that was one of our nice days in May, and we had over 100 people that attended the event, where we had a ribbon cutting. We had free giveaways, free snow cones, and just was a really nice event for the community, which opened up our new projects that we unveiled to the community. And I have to tell you, I mean, the park was in great shape this summer when we opened the pool, and we got a lot of great feedback at the beginning of the season. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Julie. She's just going to give a quick staff report about our staffing this summer, and then we'll get into some other stuff.
So this summer with our staff, we had probably about a 55% retention rate from the year before. Retention rate is kind of a big thing with us. It's difficult to hire and train that many lifeguards, as well as the desk and maintenance staff. The applicant pool has been declining a little, and then of course with the lifeguarding there's extensive amounts of training that the kids can't always attend, or occasionally some of them cannot pass. So it's great when we have kids come back from the previous year, because we already know how well they do and they're already trained. Our desk staff, as well as our maintenance staff, they go through a couple days, 2 days usually each, of training pre-season, as well as several in-services and meetings throughout the summer to keep them up to speed, desk staff with the customer service and the maintenance with ways to keep the facility as clean as possible. The lifeguard staff go through extensive certification. They are all certified fully in American Red Cross lifeguarding, CPR AED for the professional rescuer, as well as administering oxygen. Since the lifeguarding staff work at all three facilities, they are also trained in water park lifeguarding, waterfront lifeguarding, and some of the guards, there is a small amount of guards that do only shallow water lifeguarding, and they stay only at our indoor pool, but everybody else is pretty much trained to work at all three facilities. This summer, the management began working with the fire department to extend our training. The initial work was with Rosewood Beach, but we have plans to extend it further in the future. This summer, the drill that we did was a mock rescue at Rosewood Beach of our guards rescuing an unconscious swimming victim in the far south cove. And the fire department then came in as our staff called 911. The fire department then was brought on, and they proceeded to go through their steps, get the victim into an ambulance and off to the hospital. The drill was excellent. We had, they had a crew on, and we had a crew of our lifeguards that would be the amount we would have at the beach that day, as well as supervisors. We had an actual victim in the water for the rescue itself, and then the remainder of the drill was done on a fire department mannequin. There was a lot learned on both sides. One of the big things was evaluating how our staff calls 911 and what kind of information they give. That will help in the future. The firefighters learned more about our facility and rescue response time, especially at Rosewood, because that was kind of an unknown. And the firefighters, we got a lot of response. They were very impressed with the professionalism of our guards and the amount of training that our guards had previously had for that. Some of the plans that we have in the future, moving to Hidden Creek and the indoor pool as well, working with the battalion chief to prepare a PowerPoint that would help train the lifeguards in the emergency response aspect of how to make the 911 call, what information to provide, as well as how to prepare for them to arrive after the call is made. We also will have further information about Rosewood with some of the open water aspects of kayaks and things like that. We plan to do joint rescue drills, hopefully at all 3 facilities, not just at Rosewood. So we would have a drill at each facility that would be start to finish with the victim being loaded into an ambulance. So very exciting, keeping us up to speed and getting us even more prepared for everything in the future. So with that, I'll go back to Nick.
Yeah, so staff, just again on a lighter note, staff saw our overall attendance numbers increase by 14%. A lot of this was due to our daily fees, and then we attributed some of it to our new splash pad as well. The splash pad itself helped regain parties as well. We had, our parties were up 12% this season. The one area that we had a decline in was our memberships. We've noticed over the years that our first few weekends at the pool, so starting May 23rd was our Memorial Day weekend, our first 3 to 4 weekends are our main season pass sale times. We had a total of 108 days in the summer. 24 of those were below 70 degrees. The majority of those were in May and June. And so we noticed that was a trend, that's why some of our memberships went down. Another thing is we only had 4 90-degree days in the summer, 2 of those being in the last weekend in August. I should say in September, because that's when we closed. So staff has identified that the declining memberships are something on our radar. So we're looking and investigating into improving our structure. Some of the things that we currently do is we have a discounted period in March. We also have a discounted period in the midsummer. We have a discounted for late memberships. We also have a season pass sale Labor Day weekend, which is our last weekend for the next season. Staff is currently looking at maybe doing some more value added memberships instead of discounted memberships. Not saying that we're going to take discounted out, but, just more value-added memberships, adding, punch cards or punches on the passes, stuff like that, as opposed to discounting them. So as the season went on, we noticed our attendance numbers were going up from daily fees, but we noticed a decline on the memberships. So, some other things to note, again, our parties were up 12%. And then our camp attendance, both non-park district and park district, was slightly down just because of those cancellations in June. We had our bookings were there, so there was nothing along those lines, but just those cancellations in May and June hurt the attendance on those a little bit. Bless you. Some safety-related material. We had 12 total lost and found children. Those range between 3 and 8 years old. All found successfully. And we got them. 53. We had 53 rescues this season. 100% success rate. Those range between 2 and 78 years old. Yes, I said 78 years old. We did have one patron that was a little older that went down the Torley slide and lost his.
Got a little disoriented.
Yeah, lost where he was. So with that being said, some of the goals and recommendations that we have for the next season, again, we want to increase our memberships by investigating some of those value-added memberships and look at our structure with the marketing department and see what the best ways to move forward on that. Continuing to use online couponing discounts for some daily fees, parties, stuff like that, to increase our attendance numbers even more. With the improvements that we had this summer, just continuing to follow our maintenance checklist that we have in place and do the proper routine maintenance to ensure that the park stays in the condition that it's in right now, because like I said at the beginning of this season, it's the best the park I feel has looked in the years that I've been here. So and then just continuing on rainy days and stuff like days that are not so nice, just continuing minimizing our expenses by sending home staff, and because when our revenues do decline a little bit, we want to make sure that we're watching our expenses, so without jeopardizing safety, obviously. Lastly, we have received some negative feedback a little bit on our regarding our concessions vendor this season. As a staff, obviously, our goal is to not only have the quality of food that meets the community's needs, but also the customer service expectations as well. And so our plan is to go out and find a vendor that can meet that earlier this season, so that we can really get somebody in there that we feel is the right fit for the community. Does anybody have any questions?
I got one.
Please.
Yeah.
Sure.
You may.
On the vendor.
Sure.
Is it the same vendor that we have at the golf course?
It is. We do one
Everywhere else?
vendor between Rosewood, Sunset Valley, and Hidden Creek.
Did we have the same problems with that vendor at our other facilities?
We did,
Okay.
and we are dealing with it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there any way are we tracking the daily fee people? Are they Highland Park residents, or are we attracting people from outside the community?
Yeah, I would say, we do have both coming in. It's a lot of it's daily fees cash. Our current systems that we have.
It is. It's in the report.
Yeah,
I believe.
we do have.
It might not be separated in your report. But I can get you those numbers
Yeah.
if you would like them.
Yeah,
Daily
because,
fees for residents, we had 10,800.
Yes,
Non-resident
okay.
daily fees, we had just short of 6,000, so we're definitely serving more residents.
it's because the reason I bring that up, and I understand that, we have an aging facility. By the way, it looked great this year. I mean, I think the slides were painted.
Yeah.
I mean, it just, the wow factor driving down Deerfield Road, I'm at that light constantly, and looking over there, I mean, it really, really looked nice. And as a lap swimmer, the park inside looked nice. I was there a lot. Jack was great this summer, by the way, in the mornings. But what I will want to point out is that I noticed in the Chicago Tribune this week that Northbrook is in the process of doing a significant renovation to their water park. I know that Deerfield just rebuilt their pool. And so I know that we have an aging facility that is kind of limited what we can and can't do at that location, but we should be mindful going forward that our competing governments, our competing communities around here have invested a significant amount of money into their pool, and we should keep an eye on that, just be able to track that and see how that's impacting what we do at Hidden Creek.
Sure. Great, thank you. Any other comments? All right, thank you, guys. Very nice presentation. I had a request for a 2-minute recess.
Oh.
So why don't we?
It's you? Okay.
Why don't we take two?
Can we come back for the camp report?
Gentlemen, if we could have our seats, please, we will continue with our meeting. Our next item is our Camp 2015 report. Kathy Fiore and Jesse Berg. There they are.
Yeah.
Here we
Hey,
are.
ladies.
Thank you for having us.
How are you?
We're good, thank you.
Tell us about camp.
Sure. First of all, we want to thank the Park Board of Commissioners and the entire Park District staff for a successful summer camp season. Through this collaboration, we were able to have 1,462 campers participate in 22 camps. This is a 6% increase in participation compared to 2014. Additionally, we were happy to provide 70 scholarships to our campers, which nearly doubled from 30 campers in 2014. This increase in participation can absolutely be attributed to an all-new marketing approach that we took last year. This marketing approach was implemented and designed by our communications department. First, we kicked off the campaign with the new slogan, which was Come Explore. We felt that this new slogan better explained the one-of-a-kind experience that you get at a Park District of Highland Park camp. Additionally, we took a more personal approach to our marketing campaign. What we did was we sent personalized birthday cards to every camper throughout the year, signed by their favorite camp staff. And then we also took the initiative to have all the camp directors and supervisors keep in touch with the families throughout the years with personalized emails with upcoming deadlines and important and exciting changes that they could look forward to. We really value our participant feedback, so we analyzed our participant survey results, and we were really thrilled to find that our camps are chosen mainly not just because of convenience and fee, but the main reason they choose us is because of our high quality and wide array of activities we offered. So we took advantage of having this information, and the camp supervisors really took planning up a notch this year. Jessie is here because she helped implement many of these activities, so she's going to talk about some of the highlights.
Thanks. So a lot of these changes really came into play on day one, which in our eyes we consider to be our camp in-service training. This past summer, we employed 119 outstanding counselors and directors, and 45% of these were returning from the previous summer. We welcomed our staff at our in-service training, which really set the tone for the entire season. We broke the ice with a camp supervisor starting lineup to the Chicago Bulls theme song and had a photo and video montage of our favorite moments from Camp 2014. Following that, the staff broke into smaller groups to really focus on team building and covered policies and procedures, safety, behavior management, and more. Our camp supervisors really kicked it up a notch when it came to coming up with unique programming and field trips, so our campers were able to experience rock climbing, scuba lessons, and more, all within the specialty of each camp. Our sports and creative camps had some of the biggest curriculum changes. Sweatshop was renamed to Spotlighters, voted by our 2014 campers, so that was the debut year. They experience workshops every week that focused on a new visual or performing art that they didn't typically get at camp, which has already been extremely well received based on our surveys. They also wrote, produced, and performed their very own show, Cinderella Goes Disco. Our sports camps were also restructured and renamed to Lil Giants Junior Varsity and Varsity Sports Camp. With the addition of some outdoor adventure programs, we really created the theme of come back year after year, advance with us, and grow with us. All of our campers were surprised with our second annual all-camp event, Midsummer Sizzle, which was moved to Sunset Park this year. All of the campers got to meet other campers from camps within the district, do extreme inflatables, water slides, face painting, and even custom PDHP temporary tattoos. A lot of these improvements really had an impact on our camps, but some of the biggest improvements that we saw had to do with our facility updates. Campers loved the new splash pad at Heading Creek, the addition of the Teams course at Heller Nature Center, and of course, all of our campers loved Rosewood Beach and the Interpretive Center. And believe it or not, Camp 2016 is right around the corner, so Kathy has some updates to give you a sneak peek of what we have in store.
So our updates for 2016 are already well underway. This year, residents can begin registering for camps on Thursday, November 5th at 7 a.m. So to make everyone aware of this change, everyone in this room has a sneak peek of the hard copy of the brochure, which the hard copy of the brochure is still very familiar looking, but if you flip through, there's some really amazing updates. My favorite page is page 14, where we have some really great testimonials, and it's so bright that you can't not read it. Throughout the brochure, you'll see full-page pictures, and even the important information has been updated in a more reader-friendly way so that people can really seek out the information they're actually looking for. To make everyone aware of this new registration deadline, we emailed out a digital brochure. I believe it went out on Monday of this week, so you should have all had it. But this digital brochure is more than just an electronic copy of what's in front of you. There are actually video testimonials embedded in this brochure. So make sure you open that up and click on the videos of parents and campers talking about everything they loved about camp. So we're starting to move into our next phase of our marketing campaign, which we are super excited about, and we want to share it with you guys. So we have some visual aids for you. At our facilities, you will have seen this banner in front of many of our facilities, just kind of letting everyone know that camp registration's right around the corner. So this sets the theme of a movie theme. And the reason we chose movies is because all of our camps are so different. We can advertise them in a cohesive way while still giving each one its own kind of micro brand. So once these are all out, we move into our next phase, just like you would see at a movie theater, of kind of the sneak peek poster. So it's really grabs your attention. It's easy to read, but once you sit down and look at it, there's all kinds of great detail. For example, where you would see movie reviews, these are actual testimonials from our parents. So that's the next phase. After that, you will see each camp will have a movie-themed poster. So for example, Girls Play Strong featured a Hunger Games theme. So this is these are all kind of concept designs.
Wait a minute, that makes me President Snow. Not cool. Not cool at all.
I can't believe, wait, time out. I can't believe you know that.
But again, it draws your attention and you can't help but look at it, comment on it, think, what is this all about? So this is something we're really excited about, but our brand new phase that we're extremely excited about, this is a miniature version because these are going to be life-sized cutouts in our facilities of our campers participating in their favorite activities. But not only are these life-size cutouts, these bubbles here, conversation bubbles, are actually Velcro, so we can put different messages throughout our marketing phases. So it's just really all about recognizing how action-packed our camps are and just identifying how out of the norm they are compared to some of our competitors. In addition to marketing to get the attention of participants and our residents, our camp program really relies on our staff. So we're taking a lot of time to really focus on staff recruitment. We will be starting our staff recruitment in November this year. This is because we really want to grab those college kids and high school kids, but make it more convenient for college kids who are looking for jobs and not just relying on winter break. So if they're away for winter break, they might be home for Thanksgiving break and they can come on in and meet with us, things like that. Also, our staff recruitment ads are really going to be geared towards why they want to work for us. We feel that because our staff is required to excel in customer service, make decisions, and excel in teamwork, we really feel that working for us will kind of help them on their career path, no matter what it will be, whether they want to be a teacher or not. Any career that they choose, we will help them develop into young professionals. So we had a really great 2015 season, and we want to share some of that with you. So we have a really short kind of montage of the best things that happened at camp this year. So thank you all for your time, and we're happy to answer any questions anyone has.
Questions from the board?
So other than sharing that video with us, are we using that? Are we sharing that with the families, with the parents? Will it be reused somehow?
Yeah, so Jesse actually put that together, and Emily Bying from Communications, they use that software frequently, so we can share it on places like Facebook and things like that.
I think people always enjoy seeing someone they recognize in the camp or even their own kids. It's really nice.
Absolutely. It's fun for us, too.
Again, I've always marveled what a great job you guys do with our camps, and every year, Liza, I mentioned that not only are we providing a home for the campers, but we also are providing for our young adults, our teenagers and our college kids, providing them a really good setting to learn about what responsibility is and what it means to have someone rely on you like our counselors. And I just anecdotally, I just want to mention that although my son, who for many years was a camp counselor, was also director of one of our camps, he is now in the process of interviewing, and I'm not going to say the real world, but I'm going to say his postgraduate career. And one of the things that a lot of the employers have looked at is his experience at the Park District of Highland Park, not only as a camp counselor, but also of being a baseball coach. And I found it very ironic that a lot of times he called me up and goes, Dad, you don't realize how many potential employers wanted me to talk about my experience at the Park District of Highland Park as a counselor and as a director. So not only are we doing great things for our kids, but we're also helping our young adults take that next step, and the lessons they're learning from you guys, are really helpful. And hopefully, it's going to get my kid a job and gets off the payroll. But I really appreciate everything you've done. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's bittersweet for us because we really have a great staff. So unfortunately, we have turnover years, and we're proud because they grow up and get full-time jobs, but then we lose them. So, but we're happy to hear that.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much. Wonderful
Thank you.
presentation. Love the montage.
Thank you.
When will the cutouts be starting to be showing in our facilities?
So they're rolling out in phases. This life-size phase is the last phase, so you'll see this beginning in January. Keep your eyes peeled.
We'll be making one of Barney.
Absolutely. Everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. We're not out to deter people.
You could be senior crew. Oops.
Yeah, not allowed to say that. All right, so our last item in this category before we turn to public comments would be our director's report from Executive Director McElroy.
So for my director's report tonight, here's what I'm going to say. Tonight you saw two areas of the Park District that are probably the Hidden Creek, and you got to see snippets of Rosewood, but certainly our camp program. Probably we have more interaction with the majority of the public through those activities than anything else that we do. And you get to see the upfront players, you get to see the Jessies and the Kathys and the Nicks and the Julies, but I think the most important thing to note is that everything we do takes a village. And in the Park District of Highland Park, we emphasize teamwork. We emphasize it in our orientations. We do talk to the kids about a profession in Parks and Recreation preferably, or that what they do may impact their future employment. But if you look in this room, we've got planning, responsible for Rosewood. You've got marketing, who has really helped boost registration. You've got IT, who is the support, again, one of those guys behind the scenes, but an important role for us. You've got administration of recreation and facilities between Kathy, Dan, and Brian, who oversee all of the people activities. I know Noel's back there somewhere. You've got the parks providing support services. You've got Annette making sure that everyone, if we're not taking in the revenue, we're saving the expenses. And I don't think I left anyone out, except for you guys who really allow us to do the great stuff that we do. An example of this is that this past Friday, we had our experience, and these guys dialed it up a notch like you would not believe. But every single person in this room was either there physically or behind the scenes helping out. Unfortunately, Mother Nature didn't cooperate, but the rain came, but we can save it for next year, but it really was awesome. Fortunately, the week before, we had a bunch of activities. We had 300 kids in between Westridge and the rec center experiencing Halloween in dry conditions. So as I sit here as the executive director, I say it to the staff all the time. You have heard it, but I could not be more proud of the output of this park district in terms of the quality of programs. We certainly try harder than anybody to make sure that we do the best we can. And it's really a reflection of the entire team and you guys, and I just want to thank you, because what we saw tonight is why we all do what we do. And we, sometimes in our business, we hear the complaints more than we hear the compliments, but you can just feel how good that is, what we do. And I think that that's what keeps us coming back for more. So that's my report for you tonight.
Wow, that's very nicely said.
Thank you. Thank you.
Questions or comments, other than just nodding in agreement? Okay. Next topic, we will open up the floor for the public to address the board on topics that were not on the agenda. And in case anybody's curious why we split it up, we do the topics on the agenda. Before we consider them, then we have the community's input that governs our deliberations. And then when we get through the end of our agenda, if there's other topics that we haven't covered, we can hear from the public their thoughts and decide what to do with those issues in future meetings. So, not that anybody asked, but I thought I would mention there is a method to the madness.
Scott, why do we break it up?
Why on all other meetings do we have the public comment? No. So, I'm going to guess that the people wearing the dog patches would like to talk to us about something. So why don't we open it up? Standard operating cats. Well, change of pace.
They want cats at Rosewood.
You want to walk your cats at Rosewood, you knock yourselves out. Step up, give us your name, your address, and tell us what you want to tell us.
Is it okay to read somebody else's comments who had to leave?
Sure. Do you have their name and address?
Yes.
Excellent.
Okay. I'm reading for my neighbor. I'm Ellen Diamond Waldman. I live at 645 Sheridan Road, and I'm reading for my neighbor, Mark Starkman. He just said, concerning the dog walking issue at Rosewood Beach, when will this issue be reconsidered? When will it be on the agenda? Will it be on the agenda for November? What can be done to accelerate the reconsideration of the issue, given the changing seasons? Would that entail a special meeting, a workshop? I guess what would that look like? And his last comment, what would cause the board to fail to reconsider this ban?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, I am Sherwin Waldman, 645 Sheridan Road, Highland Park. Couple general comments. An interesting meeting this evening, but if I learned anything, it's to get yourself on the agenda to make it a little bit shorter. But in terms of Rosewood Beach, first, thank you very much to the board for getting the swings put in there. I noticed that they've been used quite often when I'm down there. My grandson lives out of town, but I can assure you when he comes into town, we'll be heading in that direction. Also, The solution to the water drainage issue rained heavily the other day. I was down there. It looks like you solved that problem, and I appreciate that as well.
Time's the charm.
And also, in terms of the fire, I appreciate you very much doing the repairs as quickly as you did. It looks good, and I think by the time, by next season, the wood will fade, it'll all be pretty seamless, and
Thank you
it'll
for
look
saying
fine.
so. It was very emotional for all of us.
Yeah. In terms of the dog issue, I've lived at my address for 25 years, and during that time, I've had 3 dogs, and I've walked my dogs down there daily for the last 25 years, and I kind of totaled it up, and it's probably 5,000 or more loops that I've made down to Rosewood Beach over all those years. So I know the area very well. I've been down there recently since the season is closed, and to be honest with you, unless it's really a beautiful day, there are very few people down there. I've ventured, towards the bridge and have looked to see who's there. And there's actually very few dogs down there as well. Who comes down there are just the people that live within a few blocks who use that as their daily walking routine. I don't think you need to fear that this is going to be overrun by canines once you allow some off-season use. I also like to report that I've not seen any dog refuse at all. I haven't stepped in any dog refuse at all, and I think the dog owners who have come down there on a daily basis who live nearby have been very responsible. And the people I see down there, if I am down there with my dog, don't seem to fear the dog. They're very nice, and I've gotten positive responses from a lot of people wondering why the dogs aren't allowed to walk on the boardwalk. So I don't think it's unreasonable to really make a serious consideration to let us do that loop and walk on the boardwalk in the off-season, let's say, November 1st, April 15th. I don't think we're going to see a lot of use by people, particularly when it gets colder, and you will see routine use by the people who do walk their dogs. So I appreciate if you could come to a conclusion on that as soon as possible. One other short comment, and that is that when I have been down there and I have been using it the appropriate way, which is down the path or down the stairway, I have been approached by some of the security personnel down there who don't seem to know that, what the new rules are. So if you could communicate that with your employees, I've had a couple of conversations with them, so at least they know where we stand at the moment, and if we do change the rules, to inform them as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone.
Hey there.
I'm Erica Weeder. I live at 328 Marshman.
Nice to see you again.
Last time I was here speaking before this august body was 4 weeks ago. That is 7 beautiful weekend days, one rainy. I was out walking the dog in the rain. This is what I do. This is my healthy leisure pursuit. Get the beagle, down the stairs, across the pavement and back up the loop, and that's what I did. I figured at least 1,000 miles with not just my dog but my friends' dogs what's the big deal? And I'm so glad the treasurer is here, because I kept thinking it doesn't cost anything. It don't cost nothing to just let those responsible leashed pets back have access that they enjoyed for all those years. I mean, how could that possibly? It's a micro-local issue. It's just a couple of people who really miss it. And I'm here to plea. I always lose my composure speaking in front of you folks. But what's the big deal? Can't you just let us have what we always enjoyed? I know it's a beautiful boardwalk, but man, one knucklehead with a cigarette did so much more damage than any number of a generation of dogs could possibly do. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Ms. Sogan?
I'm still Jean Sogan. On this issue, I'm really speaking for myself. It's not for beloved spouse or historic preservation. This one is, like Erica, I get really emotional about it because I take my dog I've been running down there for the 27 years we've lived in Highland Park, pretty much every day. It has to be below 10 degrees above zero, and sometimes I'll push that down to 5 degrees above zero if it's not too windy. So, and most of those, and so this is, you know, a long time of going down there. Mostly I'm alone. That even in the summer, if it's early, I'm alone. I'd rather not have people around with it, and especially with the dog. So to have the door slammed on me after waiting all of that time for Rosewood to be open again, and I missed it so much while it was under construction. I was just, it was being like hit in the chest to say, you can't go there. And so, okay, the door is slammed shut. And I didn't come back to talk to you after the first time because I felt like I didn't have anything more to say. That I told you that I felt so much safer, having done this for a long time, and I really feel so much safer doing it with the dog than without the dog. I didn't have anything else to say. But it turns out I do. And so the door is slammed shut. Now we're all trying to figure out a way to get our foot in the door again, just to get it a little bit open. And one of the things that I've thought of was, you know, I've tried paying the money to use the dog beach and the dog park. I don't like taking the dog in the car and going someplace else. Like Erica, I like walking out the door and going off with my run. But I wouldn't mind paying the dog beach fee. I wouldn't mind if it were higher. If you would feel better knowing that the dog walkers are paying something so that if there is dog poop, someone can be paid to pick it up. That would really be okay. And it would also be okay to say you can just cross the little bridge and go down the driveway, cross the little bridge, and go back up the ravine path. That little bit of being open on the boardwalk would be okay as in the off season. That I'm not asking for the summer, but just a piece of the time. That Laura Serrett's point of to be able to go down and have a place to sit for a little bit and then continue her walk makes the difference between it's being doable and not being doable for her. And we're not asking for it to go back. I get Cal's point. It's not that it doesn't look like the same Rosewood Beach. I get that. But couldn't there be a time when we could use it the way we used it in the past? It doesn't have to be all the time, but just find a little window for us is what we're looking for. Okay.
Thank you, Jane. Okay. Anyone else? Any topic? Okay. That brings us to the end of our open session for the moment. If we could get a motion to go into closed session pursuant to the following sections of the Open Meetings Act, Section 2C1, 2C5, 2C6, 2C8, 2C11, 2C21, and 2C29, I would appreciate it.
I'll give you a motion.
Second.
Can we call the roll, please?
Commissioner Bernstein?
Aye.
Commissioner Forrest Weisskopf?
Aye.
Commissioner Kaplan?
Aye.
Vice President Rottenberg?
Aye.
President Myers?
Aye. We are in closed session.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Good seeing
Thank you.
everybody again.
Thank you.